The moment felt like the world paused on a thin breath, like a held note in a sad song that refuses to resolve. A quiet restaurant, a trembling confession, and a truth so raw it could not be unseen. That was when everything I thought I understood about love, beauty, and courage quietly fell apart and rearranged itself into something far more real. Before the story unfolds any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that people deserve to be seen beyond their scars, please take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps spread stories like this to the people who need them most. She had sat across from me looking perfectly ordinary, perfectly radiant in a way that wasn't loud or attention-seeking, just a warm presence that made the space around her softer, the kind of person who made you feel calmer just by being near. There was nothing about her that hinted at the quiet war she was fighting inside. Her smile was gentle, careful, practiced from years of needing to reassure others that she was fine even when she wasn't. The room was filled with the muted sounds of cutlery, low laughter from other tables, and the hum of a city evening outside the windows. But all of it blurred into the background as she struggled to form words that clearly cost her more than I understood at the time. Her story didn't start in that restaurant. It started years earlier, in hospital rooms that smelled like antiseptic and fear, in long nights where the ceiling became her closest companion, in moments where mirrors felt like enemies instead of reflections. Illness had entered her life quietly, like a thief in the night, and left its mark not just on her body but on her sense of worth. Surgeries, scars, and changes that no one prepares you for had reshaped how she saw herself. Each physical change had chipped away at the person she believed she was allowed to be, especially in a world that worships perfection and filters out anything that feels inconvenient or uncomfortable. She learned, slowly and painfully, that people can be kind in words and cruel in distance, that some will say they understand, but their eyes reveal discomfort, pity, or fear of what they do not know how to hold. Dates would start with interest and end with polite excuses, messages would fade, promises would dissolve into silence. Over time, she stopped expecting much from anyone because hope had begun to feel like a dangerous thing, safer to expect nothing, safer to assume that no one wanted to stay. And yet she still showed up that evening, still dressed carefully, still brushed her hair with intention, still chose vulnerability over isolation, even though vulnerability had hurt her more times than she could count. When she revealed her truth, it was not dramatic or loud. It was quiet, almost apologetic, as if she felt she needed permission to exist the way she did. The act of lifting her shirt was not about shock or attention, but about honesty, about no longer wanting to hide, about refusing to build something on a version of herself that wasn't real. What she showed was not something ugly, it was human. Scars that told a story of survival, of pain endured, of strength that had never been celebrated properly. But in her mind, those marks were proof of being unwanted, of being broken, of being the reason people left. Her body had become, to her, a map of reasons not to be loved. And that was the moment I realized how wrong the world had been to her. Not because of what her body looked like, but because of what she had been taught to believe about it. She expected rejection. You could see it in the way her shoulders subtly tensed, in the way her breath caught just slightly, in the way her eyes prepared themselves for disappointment like a muscle memory. It was the posture of someone who has learned that leaving is more common than staying. That affection is conditional. That acceptance is fragile. But something inside me refused to play that script. Not out of heroism, not out of pity, but because I saw her. Not the scars, not the fear, not the apology she carried in her chest. I saw a woman who had survived something that would have broken many, a woman who still believed in showing up, a woman who still risked her heart even after it had been bruised over and over again. And that kind of courage is breathtaking. From that moment forward, things changed slowly, not in grand gestures but in quiet consistency. It was in showing up again, in choosing patience when insecurity surfaced, in listening when fear spoke louder than logic. It was in the small moments, the ones that don't make it into movies but make up real love. Long walks with no destination, late nights talking about childhood dreams and adult disappointments, silence that felt safe instead of awkward, laughter that didn't feel forced. She began to soften. The guarded edges of her heart slowly lowered. The way she laughed changed. The way she held herself changed. The way she looked in mirrors changed. Not because the scars disappeared, but because the meaning of them did. They were no longer symbols of rejection. They became symbols of endurance, of survival, of life continuing even when it feels like it shouldn't. She started to believe that maybe she wasn't something to be tolerated, but something to be cherished. And I realized something too. Love is not about finding someone flawless. It is about finding someone whose flaws tell a story you are willing to honor. Someone whose pain you don't run from. Someone whose healing you don't rush. Someone whose past you don't use against them. The world teaches us to want perfection because perfection is easy. It doesn't ask us to grow. It doesn't ask us to stay when things are uncomfortable. It doesn't ask us to see beyond the surface. But real love is inconvenient. It's messy. It's imperfect. It asks us to show up when it's easier to leave. And she had been living in a world that kept choosing easy over real. Until now. Time didn't magically erase her fears. Some days were still heavy, some memories still hurt, some insecurity still whispered at her when she least expected it. But now, those whispers had competition. They had a counterweight. They had proof that not everyone leaves, that not every truth is a deal breaker, that not every scar is a reason to walk away. Slowly, she stopped bracing herself for abandonment. Slowly, she started planning instead of just surviving. Slowly, she started dreaming again. Not big dramatic dreams, simple ones, peaceful ones. Ones that involve mornings without dread. Ones that involve feeling safe. Ones that involve being loved not despite who she is, but because of who she is. And that is the kind of love that changes a person, not because it fixes them, but because it reminds them they were never broken to begin with. If this story has touched something inside you, if it has reminded you of your own worth or the worth of someone you love, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue telling stories that heal instead of harm. And just before we end, I have a special request for you. Please comment the word stay if you believe that the world needs more people who choose not to walk away when things get real. Because somewhere right now, someone believes they are too much, too broken, too different to be loved. And they are wrong. They are not too much. They are not broken. They are not unlovable. They are human. And being human is not a flaw. It is the most beautiful thing we are. If this story made you feel seen, understood, or hopeful in any way, please engage with it. Your interaction helps this message reach someone who desperately needs to hear that they are not alone. And maybe, just maybe, your small act of kindness today becomes someone else's reason to believe in tomorrow.